Hi there, John Moore here, and I'm a shamanic practitioner from the state of Maine and teacher, and somebody in my online tribe, which is linked below, asked about what a soul retrieval session or soul retrieval experience is like. And I thought it'd be easier to answer over video, and I thought it might be a general enough interest question that I would do a whole video about it. So let's talk a little bit about what a healing session encompasses, and then within that healing session, there may be soul retrieval. So people often come to me asking for soul retrieval. Now, soul retrieval, generally speaking, is a shamanic ceremony that is performed for something called soul loss. Soul loss can be the result of trauma, it can be the result of different things. I've done lots of videos about soul loss and soul retrieval. And what I want to talk about is what happens during an actual session. So I have a lot of people who come to me for that, or people who come to me just with complaints and don't really know what they need and ask for soul retrieval. So what happens in one of my healing sessions may be different than how other practitioners work. Let me say that up front. Generally speaking, there will be some commonalities, but you may go to another practitioner who does something completely different. Neither one is right or wrong. It's just we have our own individual relationships with helping spirits that we work through to do this work, and the way the sort of outward appearance of the work could be different. Underneath it all, we're kind of doing the same thing. So if somebody has a session with me, generally it's going to be over video, over Zoom. I have clients all over the world, and sometimes people want me to do house calls, but most of the time it's over Zoom or some other video platform anyway. So a session with me is about 90 minutes. And I tell people, make sure you have 2 hours scheduled in case we go overtime. That happens somewhat frequently, but a good estimate is about 90 minutes. What happens during that session is we're going to meet. I'm going to go through a few things with you. One is I'm going to tell you that the session is completely confidential. I don't share client or student information, personally identifying information with anyone for any reason whatsoever. Two, I am not a medical practitioner or therapist, and shamanic healing is not meant to replace medicine or therapy. It is a spiritual adjunct to that. It is spiritual healing. And even if you're on some sort of treatment or medication or something, and even if you feel really wonderful after the session, don't go off your meds, okay? Don't do any of that. Don't stop seeing your doctor. Don't stop seeing your therapist until they clear you, until they say it's okay, right? Sometimes people have a really profound state change during the session, and they feel really amazing. And, that I would love for that to be a permanent thing for everybody. But, we cycle up and down, and particularly soul retrieval, the effects of soul retrieval can take a month and a half to be fully realized. Most people feel something during the session. Most people experience some healing during the session itself, but the full effect takes a little while. So just, be prepared for that. And this is something I would go through with a client. So we're going to start out by talking, just like this, except you're going to be asking me questions. I'm going to be asking you questions. I'm going to talk about what brought you to contact me. If it's our first session, I'm going to make sure you understand everything about it. And then I'm going to do a number of journeys for you. What that's going to look like is I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to drum for a little while. The very first journey that I do is a diagnostic journey. You might be 100% convinced that you need soul retrieval. I might be 100% convinced that you need soul retrieval. However, there may be some work that my helping spirits want me to do leading up to the soul retrieval ceremony. And oftentimes that's the case. Oftentimes people need other work as part of the same session, but before I do, usually what happens is that if soul retrieval is indicated, I'll know during the diagnostic journey, that will come towards the end of the session. It will probably be the last journey that I do. And so I'll do a bit of a diagnostic journey. I will come back from the journey. So I'll open my eyes, I'll take some notes, we'll talk again. I will describe, this is what I saw, this is what I experienced, this is what my helping spirits are telling me would be most beneficial for you today. Maybe that includes soul retrieval and some other ceremonies. Or maybe it's just soul retrieval. Very rarely is it just soul retrieval, but it happens. Make sure you understand everything. Answer all of your questions. Then I'm going to do a series of journeys after that. So depending on what the ceremonies are that I'm doing, those are going to be done in journey. Again, I close my eyes and play my drum. It is the job of the client to do nothing but relax as much as possible. That's it. That's your whole role in all this, is to talk with me and relax as much as possible. It's not therapy. It's not talk therapy. It's, we're doing spiritual work. So I would journey and then come back from the journey, and then we would talk. We would talk about what I saw, talk about implications. I would explain everything that I've done, ask if you have any questions, answer any questions that you have. So we keep doing that up until the point where we get to soul retrieval, and during which time I would do soul retrieval ceremony for you, soul retrieval journey. And again, it's going to look like the other journeys from an outside perspective. Soul retrieval is very big work, though. Journeys can take a little while. It's totally fine. Some people are like profoundly impacted by the work almost immediately, although I would still say that there's some integration time that happens. During that journey, I'm going to get a sense of the essences, the soul essences that are coming back. And I'm going to work with my helping spirits to sort of give them descriptors, right? So this is the essence of feeling safe in your own body. This is the essence of trusting. This is the essence, so some descriptor, so you have a little bit of a handle on the power that's come back to you, what had been lost and the soul lost before. So I'm going to talk about that, and then I'm going to go through integration steps. There's usually some homework for the client to do after the session, in which they will integrate the work to ensure that these parts are fully integrated with them, right? These parts that have been brought back during the ceremony. And that could be anything, and I couldn't sort of predict what that's going to be. Sometimes it's really simple. Sometimes it's like, in meditation, tell yourself that you trust in your judgment, that you trust in your intuition, and really try to generate that sense of safety as you meditate over the next few weeks. And that will help that part feel welcome and safe and reintegrate with your system. So then at the end, we will, we'll talk. I'll talk about what happened, what came back. Sometimes, because soul loss can be the result of trauma, people want to know about their trauma. I want to know what happened to me when I was 6. I want to know if this person hurt me in some way. I want to know, I can't fully remember that. That's a little bit of a sticky situation. I may or I may not see the actual trauma during the journey. I will get some sense of the age that it happened and maybe some situation. Sometimes I get lots of details about it. It is not my job, nor would it be very helpful to re-traumatize you, to say, lay a bunch of trauma in your lap. Even though soul retrieval has been done around that trauma, it hasn't fully been integrated yet. It's also not necessary to remember 100% of your trauma to heal from it. You can heal just fine without remembering the details of traumatic events, right? And a lot of times, traumas can happen when we are infants, when we're pre-verbal. Those still affect us, or we're unconscious. We might not have, even if I see what happened, like you might not be able to recover a memory of that. The other issue with, if I see something and it's a little fuzzy and I tell you about it, we know how easy it is to create false memory, right? Oh, when you were a kid between 5 and 9 years old, some adult male did something, and someone's like, oh, I'm seeing a picture of my uncle or my stepfather or whatever. He must have done this. And then we're creating false memories. And that's really, really dangerous and unhelpful. So I tried very lightly in that area of I need to remember everything that happened to me. I get it. I understand. I have trauma that I can't remember. And sometimes I wish I could. And sometimes I'm glad that I can't. And but I'm healing from it, regardless of whether I can remember it or not. So that's kind of it. So at the end of the entire session, we wrap up, answer any questions. I will make sure that the client feels grounded, centered, give some instructions for self-care for the rest of that day, and talk about follow-up. And so sometimes people want something that's like, that was great. When can I have another session? With soul retrieval, the rule of thumb is if you want another session, to wait about 6 weeks to give it time for that to fully integrate. And I should say that something I neglected to say is that when I do soul retrieval work, somewhere between 1 and 3 soul essences will be returned during that time. Again, as a rule of thumb, I don't bring back more than 3 soul essences because that can be really overwhelming for somebody, right? It can be powerfully emotionally overwhelming, can leave you open, can make it hard to integrate. So there'll be between 1 and 3 soul essences that will come back. After the session, sometimes what happens is you'll have a soul retrieval ceremony, and then you will have spontaneous soul returns. Soul essences will come back spontaneously after the fact, weeks down the road even. Why? Because we have created a spiritual environment where they now feel safe to return, and they've seen this other part. It's sort of like pulling on a string of pearls, right? You pull one pearl and the others come with it. That can happen, and I've seen that. That's a fairly common thing that happens with soul retrieval. So I hope this has been helpful. Describing what happens during a soul retrieval healing session, at least with me. And again, it could be very, very different. And if you're doing it in person, that'll be a different thing altogether, right? I haven't described that because it's a little rarer for me to do in-person soul retrieval. But for anybody who does have that, maybe I'll do another video on that in the future. Anyway, take care. Talk to you very soon.